Good morning. It's Friday, July 1st. I'm Alexis Del Cid in for Jessica Lovell. Welcome to a special edition of the Morning Medical Update. Today we're focusing on the patient perspective through the eyes of a very well-known Kansas City couple. They're facing a devastating diagnosis. It's a cancer diagnosis, and they're going through this publicly. Joining us today are Matt and Chrissie Stewart, and there's a good chance you know both of them. Matt is a Fox 4 reporter and anchor who joins us between his live shots at WDAF. Chrissie works with pediatric cancer patients at Children's Mercy Hospital. She joins us live today as well via Zoom. I just love you guys. I'm nuts about you guys. They're also my personal friends, along with their pastor, Adam Hamilton, who is the senior pastor of the United Methodist Church of Resurrection in Leawood, Church of the Resurrection in Leawood. He happens to be also pastor at the largest Methodist congregation in the world. Pastor Adam is guiding them along their journey as Chrissie continues her treatment here at the University of Kansas Cancer Center. We are so happy that you've made time to join us today. And we're going to be doing things a little bit differently this morning for our audience who's watching at home. We're going to be reading your comments and your questions throughout the broadcast. Jill Chadwick will be taking those for us and reading them on air. So please send in any comments, questions, or just messages and shout outs to Chrissie and Matt on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or the Medical News Network. You can find those links right there on your screen. We love hearing from you. Before all that, we want to bring in Dr. Dana Hawkinson because it's not a program without Dr. Hawkinson, who's the Medical Director of Infection Prevention and Control, joining us with our latest COVID numbers as we head into the 4th of July holiday. Yeah,
numbers are still fairly high up there. Again, not as high as they have been, but certainly higher than they have been the past couple months. 25 active infections, 2 in the ICU, and 2 on the ventilator, but also 9 in that recovery period. So unfortunately, the active infections still are higher than we would like. Hopefully we can start to see that plateau and then that decrease overall.
I want to ask you about a couple of stories that are in the news. Dr. Fauci taking the second course of Paxlovid after a COVID-19 rebound.
Yeah, Dr. Stites and I were actually dumbfounded at this. Our viewers are on top of things and had that story very early and asked that question, and we couldn't believe it. So it appears he did have that rebound. But again, the FDA, the CDC recommendations are still to only take that one course, not needing that second course after that rebound. Dr. Fauci also said it may be reasonable to take a 10-day course. All of those things need to go in clinical trials so that we can get the best information. So again, overall, we have tried to be consistent and stuck with NIH guidelines, CDC guidelines, FDA guidelines, and recommendations. This is something that is outside of that. Again, don't know his individual risks or those conversations he had with his physician, but still from the FDA and CDC, the still recommendation is to not take a second course. There have been no severe illnesses or deaths in those people that have had a rebound. And so we'll continue to be updated and watch for any new recommendations, but the recommendation is still to take that course of Paxlovid. If you do get rebound, isolate again, restart that isolation, but there's no indication for a second course of Paxlovid. So
the CDC has added 2 destinations to its high-risk category for COVID-19, the Dominican Republic and Kuwait.
Yeah, again, I think they're adding new countries, they're taking countries off. I think it's important, and everybody really understands that the virus is circulating out there. So I think it's important, especially if you're traveling, if you're going to be in large areas such as train stations, airports, planes, buses, all of those things. I think it is very important to wear your mask and continue to do that until you get to your destination. Once you get to your destination, again, understand what are the risks that I'm going to be getting into if I'm going into a restaurant or a bar or going to somewhere where there's a lot of people. Understand those risks. Just understand that the virus is circulating out there. Obviously, we have seen a lot of canceled flights, a lot of people who are dismayed because they can't go somewhere. It's not really stopping anybody from traveling. So I think just understand the virus is circulating out there. Do what you can to protect yourself. Be up to date on vaccination. Wear your mask in those high-risk situations.
One final question for you about another virus that nobody likes hearing about, but from COVID we go to monkeypox. The U.S. is set to deploy nearly 300,000 monkeypox vaccine doses to fight the monkeypox outbreak. Should we be concerned about this during the 4th of July holiday as a lot of us are headed for airports and big gatherings?
Right now, monkeypox, anybody can get it, but it is very difficult to get. You do need close contact with somebody who has it. We know that there are easy ways to prevent it, and that is through vaccination. I think this is a good plan. They expanded the recommendations from people who have been known contact with somebody with monkeypox now to somebody who may be at risk because of if they are, with other people or in close contact with maybe new partners or something like that. So there probably will be an expansion moving forward of recommendations to get it, but it still is really just in those people that are maybe at those higher risk situations, meeting new people, being in close contact with them. I think it's a good way to hopefully stem the tide of the further outbreak here in the United States.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Hawkinson.
And hopefully we will be getting a new name for monkeypox soon. I know the World Health Organization is working on that.
Yeah, but no one's going to stop calling it monkeypox.
Right.
That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Now to our program. We have a really great program for you today. It's emotional because when it comes to cancer, Chrissie Stewart's cancer is so rare, the odds are you'll never meet another person who has the kind of cancer she has. But how the Stewart family is conducting their lives in the face of this devastating diagnosis should be a lesson for all of us. They are the quintessential Kansas City couple.
We are here on Main Street here in Weston, and this is so cool.
He's a longtime Fox 4 anchor and reporter. She's a clinical nutrition specialist at Children's Mercy Hospital, working with children who have cancer. And yes, that's Chrissy back at work after a 12-week leave of absence for her own cancer treatment.
You would probably never again in your life meet someone with the diagnosis that I have.
Chrissie Stewart has angiosarcoma, cancer of the blood vessels. It can occur in many parts of the body. Chrissy's is in her ovary, though, making it even more rare. And it happened so quickly. Within a matter of just a few weeks in the fall of 2021, Chrissy went from feeling bloated to having a watermelon-sized tumor removed from her abdomen to a horrifying diagnosis and prognosis. At 43, doctors told Chrissy she had less than a 5% chance of surviving another 10 years.
It makes you question, have I done enough? Have I done enough to, be impactful on the world and to make things better and just in our community or wherever?
It is a tragedy and it sucks, and we don't like it any more than anyone else.
And it could be worse? Yes, good heavens, it could be one of the kids. You know what I mean? Wow, if any time I feel sorry for myself, I think, at least it's not my babies.
And speaking of her babies, with 3 children ages 17, 15, and 12, Chrissy and Matt have vowed to cram as much life, love, and positivity into whatever time they have left.
So I'm not missing state swim. I literally went, I had chemo, and then I went straight there after that. Everything hurt. My bones hurt, my muscles hurt. I was sick all the time, vomiting and just so tired.
And she slept in the bleachers when he wasn't swimming.
I did. Girl Scouts, yeah.
Musicals, soccer.
She does all the things.
All the things.
As she goes about all the things that make up the fabric of her children's daily life, Chrissy is also fighting for her life with every tool available.
Why am I putting myself through all of this if it's not to participate more with the kids and to watch all of their things?
Through it all, they've made it a priority to keep life as normal as possible for their kids, and they're continuing to travel.
So I feel like that it's not so much of a bucket list as much as we're trying to smoosh in 30 years of stuff into 3 years.
That also includes trying to have all the conversations she envisioned having with her children throughout the various seasons of their lives.
As a mom, or as a parent, there are things that you want to impart on your children. And I don't have all the time to do that. You know what I mean? I can't give them marriage advice in 20 years or whatever, with their kids or whatever. I have to do that now. So some things come up and conversations come up. And I think, I need to take this moment right now to discuss this because they need to have me in their brain, in their head. Mom would have said this.
She and Matt hope by sharing their family's journey so publicly, online and on forums like these, that they can help others who may face darkness in their own lives.
It's really easy to go down that road and to start feeling sorry for yourself. But the truth is it's beyond our control. There's absolutely nothing we can do to change what's going on right now, besides doing treatment, right? I mean, that's our choice, is what kind of treatment
yeah,
she's
and our
going to
personal health
take and all that
choices,
kind of
obviously,
stuff.
yeah.
But besides that, I mean, we all are dealing with our own kind of different situations. So the choice we have to make is, do we attack it from a place of positivity, from trying to rally people around and trying to just really focus and enjoy every moment with each other? There's some angiosarcoma patients that have had it for 10, 20, who have been NED for a long time, you know? So yeah, it's a small percentage compared to other cancers, but why can't Chrissy be one of the 1% to 2% that kind of overcomes this and ends up living another 10, 20, 30 years?
Even if it's naive, I have to have hope. And
I have to have hope.
If there was one thing she could drive home to anyone who will listen, it's this.
Like, we don't know what's happening when you're everyone's life, you know? So like, if there's something that you want to say, if there's wisdom that you want to impart, or if there's something that you want to do it. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, just go.
Matt and Chrissie Stewart joining me now, along with their pastor, Adam Hamilton. How are you guys doing this morning? Chrissy, how are you feeling? Oh, you're on mute. We got you? Are you there, Chrissy?
You're on mute, Chrissy.
Thank you, Matt. Matt's going to talk her through this. We thought you'd be at an advantage being married to the TV guru, Matt. Matt, you didn't set her up before you left for work at 1 a.m.
All right, she's on her own with her own computer. She can handle it.
Chrissy, are you off mute now?
I'm off mute now. I'm just nervous, I think.
Don't be nervous. You have this whole community and team of people watching you. I mean, I've been following your Stewart Strong Facebook posts, and Matt and Pastor Adam. Thank you all for being here. Chrissy, I want to get into this real quick. I remember when you first posted a single picture on Facebook. It was just October 3rd. And I want to show our viewers this again. This is very recent. You wrote something like, "I'm not pregnant, but I need to get this checked out." Can you tell me the timeline and how quickly this happened?
It was pretty quick. I don't remember the exact date, but whatever date Labor Day was. Yes, there I am. I really thought twice about posting that photo, but now I'm glad I did. And it's a little bit funny. I like to add a little bit of humor to the situation. I think it helps everyone cope a little bit. I definitely started feeling a little bit, just off on Labor Day. So that would have been September. And then within a couple weeks, it was very clear that there was something very wrong. And so it took a couple weeks to kind of figure it out and get into a CT scan. And that's when they saw this enormous tumor. And then, I saw the oncologist like 3 days later.
And Matt, you and Chrissy were posting when you went to MD Anderson, I believe. You went there for a second opinion, and they said, go back to the University of Kansas Cancer Center. They're the ones that can treat you. You must have been reeling, but yet you were still posting about it and sharing that with the public.
Yeah, I mean, I think, right away when Chrissy was diagnosed with this, we had a decision to make, and it's, do we keep this private or do we share it with the world? And I think it was a situation, I left it up to Chrissy, because even though I'm a public figure and, I'm on TV, Chrissy's a private individual. So I totally respect that if she just wanted to keep it between us and kind of deal with this with us. But I think that she had seen through my own cancer diagnosis of colon cancer about 9 months earlier, she had seen the positive benefit it had by sharing this with people. I was able to share my diagnosis and encourage people to go get colonoscopies. And so I think she was thinking, I can also hopefully inspire other people with our journey. And she has. I mean, it's just, it blows my mind. It's so amazing how many people she is inspiring with her strength, her positivity, and the way that she's approached this. Every day I'm just in awe of my wife. She's quite amazing.
She saved your life, right? You say that when it came to your colonoscopy.
Yeah, so the situation was, growing up, the age to get a colonoscopy was 50. And so I turned 45, and a few years before they had changed the guidelines to 45. So on my birthday, which is in February of 2020, Chrissy's like, hey, go get your colonoscopy. And I'm like, I'll get right on that. 9 months later,
Which meant no.
9 months later, she's like, have you set up a colonoscopy? I'm like,
Right.
no. And she's like, you need to do this. And so she was just nagging me, go get it done, go get it done. And finally, I'm like, fine, tired of hearing you talk about it, I'll get it done. And I'm glad I did, because we caught it so early. It was so early, and I had a minor surgery, and they were able to take care of it. And I was recently checked just back in January, and I'm cancer-free. And imagine if I had waited till 50. That's 5 more years of growth of cancer cells in my colon. And with Chrissy's diagnosis, and then you add me to the mix, maybe having colon cancer that could have potentially taken my life. She really did save my life by nagging and encouraging me to get that colonoscopy.
Good wife. Nag away. Anyone watching this, be like Chrissy. If you're wondering how to be like Chrissy. Chrissy, in your case of angiosarcoma, and I'm going to bring in Pastor Adam in just a second, because your case is so rare because it's on an ovary. Have you found anyone else who has this kind of cancer in this location?
I have found 2 people, one in Germany, and we've never actually spoken, but I do know of them. And then there's actually another woman about my age, similar story, in Nebraska. So very close to home, but she's been invaluable in supporting me and getting me through this, because she's about 3 years ahead of me. So
have you had talks with each other about the prognosis, and are you comfortable sharing with us what doctors have told you about the prognosis for your cancer?
It's very grim. So we went to MD Anderson, and you look online when you get a diagnosis like this, and everything out there on the internet is very scary. So I want to live 10 more years. That was just kind of my goal. My daughter was 11 when I was diagnosed, and she's my youngest, and I want to finish raising my children. That's really important to me. So I when I went to MD Anderson, I said, hey, what is the likelihood of me living 10 more years? Like, I know it's not high, but what is it? And I wouldn't say that oncologist laughed. He didn't laugh, but his look on his face was, wow. I would say definitely, it's not 0, but it's definitely less than 5%. So that was I would say it was actually very grounding, because our fears were confirmed. And then once you have that knowledge, then you can find the strength to move forward and make some decisions in your life, in your family.
I want to bring in Pastor Adam Hamilton. Pastor Hamilton, you have a congregation of 25,000 people. That's huge. When families come to you, when they get news like this, how do you even begin when it comes to counseling and guidance?
Sure. Well, thank you, Alexis, for sharing this story. And you're doing the video up front was so beautiful, so moving. And it's great to see Chrissy and Matt today. So in our congregation, we have tragic diagnoses and things that happen with some regularity just because of the size of our church. And when I show up, and I had a chance to be with Matt and Chrissy sometime after the diagnosis, I don't remember when, sometime last fall. And my first order of business is just to show that I care. If it's comfortable and they're okay with it, to give a hug first. Often we think we need to have the right words to say, but what I've experienced is to love somebody and to care for them and to show that you care about them and to represent as a pastor God's love, just to enfold them in your arms. It's one of the things I try to do. For most people, it's not having the right answers, it's showing up and demonstrating your care for them. So anyway, that's one of the first things. And then to as we sit and talk, I do a lot of listening at first. Tell me, what you've heard, what do you know, what's happening, how are you feeling? To remind people it's okay to feel angry, sad, hurt, disappointed, frustrated. All of those feelings are normal, natural. It's okay to feel that way. You should feel that way. By the time I saw Matt and Chrissy, those weren't the feelings. They were already in this remarkable stage of being able to express, okay, we know what's going on, and now we're going to make the most of the life that we have. And so anyway, that's typically where I begin before we get into the why questions and the theology questions and where is God in the midst of this kind of questions.
I can't help but notice the shirt you're wearing, Pastor Adam. If you want to stick out your chest a little bit, #StewartStrong. You will see those T-shirts all over the place because Matt and Chrissy's friends made them. And they thought Chrissy, you told me, they thought they were just going to give away 100. And then people started calling. The thousands of people wanted these shirts. And I'm leading into this with Jill Chadwick, who's here with some comments and support. You've been getting so much lovely support. We just wanted to, as we promised at the top of the episode, share some of the messages we're getting right now. And Jill, I know you've found some, you guys, we're getting literally thousands of comments and messages that people want us to share with you. So Jill, let's hear some of them.
Yes, good morning. There is a true outpouring. I'm going to start with someone at Children's Mercy Hospital who I think you know really well. Brandy says, "You are absolutely amazing and we love you here at CMH." Karen says, "God bless and watch over this family during this. I pray that you have many, many, many years left with your beautiful family." Fred says, "I can identify, diagnosed 3 months ago with stage 2 pancreatic." He says his prayers are with you. Dawn says, "Tears. I'm literally in tears because I know what it's like to live with a treacherous disease." She's had cancer most of her life, 99 procedures or operations since 2012, and still she says, "I'm praying for you." Christine says, "The Stewarts are an inspiration for all of us, living out your faith and your hope." Kimberly says, "Chrissy, you're my hero." And one more from Jen, who I think you guys probably know too, because she says, "I'm so proud to know you. I love your family. Cancer sucks, but it definitely picked the wrong person." We'll have some more. They're pouring in.
Oh, yeah. We're not going to run out of viewer comments or questions. And Pastor Adam, we have a lot of messages about faith. And this is such a tough question, but how do you answer it when people ask why? Why do bad things happen to good people? How do you answer that question?
Yeah. So this is the question of faith as human beings we have is how do we make sense of suffering? The theologians call it theodicy, the issue of God and suffering or God and justice. And first of all, I say it's okay to ask the question. Some people say, it's a pointless question to ask. We're going to ask that question. Why me? Why did this happen? Why, And a lot of times when a lot of people, well-meaning people of faith, trying to find something comforting to say to somebody who's walking through tragedy, will say things like, "Well, everything happens for a reason, and it must have been the will of God." And I'd love to encourage your viewers just to really think about that hard and to say, maybe that's not the best thing to say to people. What it presupposes is that, when somebody's diagnosed with a cancer like this, that it was part of God's plan. God wanted that to happen. God had a reason for giving you cancer. And I simply don't believe that God gives his children cancer or causes car accidents or terrible, tragedies or assault or, a million other things that are hurtful and painful in this world. So instead of thinking about this and so we had this conversation, and Matt and Chrissy have heard me preach about this before, and I've written a little book about this, but recognizing that tragedy happens in the world, and the why question is a good question, but it's not, why did God do this to me? Or why did God make this happen? It's that this happened, and here are the reasons why. And this is what you all do at KU Med, and what researchers do, and they help us understand, why does cancer happen? Of the trillions of cells in our bodies, every once in a while, one will have software that's corrupted and ends up replicating in ways that are dangerous and harmful. And that's the answer to the why. And we live in a world where we have these amazing bodies that are fearfully and wonderfully made, and they fight off disease. They have immune systems. They can heal themselves of many things. Imagine a car, healing its scratch on the paint job. It doesn't happen, but for the body, it does. We have these amazing bodies, but they're still flesh and blood, and there's still things that can go wrong. And so part of the human quest is to figure out how to solve those things, how to address, how to do the research to fix these kinds of things. But so when we ask the question why, at least for me, my answer isn't, well, it's mysterious, we don't understand God's ways. It's no, I don't think God gave you cancer. This is not what God does, just like we wouldn't give cancer cells to our children, not to punish them, not to teach them, not because we want them in heaven. We wouldn't do that because it's just wrong. And so this is a part of what happens in life. And then we begin to ask, so where is God in the middle of all that? And if God isn't giving us these things, but God is all powerful, why doesn't God stop them? And as a pastor for 3 decades, walking with people, part of what I think I know is that we live in a world where our bodies are fragile. They're strong, but fragile, where things can happen. God doesn't intend it, but God also doesn't put a bubble around us and keep us from experiencing, tragedy or difficulty or pain, terrible, tragedies that happen on our planet, weather pattern, floods and all that, but also what can happen in our physical bodies or people misusing their freedom to do harm to other people. So God's way doesn't seem to be to stop all those things from happening. If that was the case, there wouldn't be a KU Med Center, and we wouldn't need police or, help firefighters or anything else. And so, what we'd like to believe is if we pray hard enough, God will provide a miraculous healing. Well, sometimes miracles happen, but that doesn't seem to be the way that God normally works. If it was the way God works, then we wouldn't need hospitals. We just need preachers. So here's what I think is that when God walks, here's what I shared with Chrissy and Matt, is in the midst of the pain, God is promising to walk with you. This is what God does. He walks with us. He carries us. He sustains us. He in scripture, we find again and again, when you go through the fire, I'll be there. When you go through the flood, I'll be there, God says. When the disciples were in the boat, Jesus says, I'm here. Don't be afraid. Over and over again, we find that. And if God is walking with me through the tragedy or the suffering or the pain, whatever it is, God will strengthen me, will help me. That gives me the strength to be able to keep walking forward and to have hope. And then God does this amazing thing of forcing good to come from evil and suffering. And so what Chrissy and Matt have done is they've said, okay, we know we may not have, we're going to pray for a miracle. We're going to continue to pray for the Grand Slam out of the park home run miracle. And we're going to pray that God will use the doctors and the nurses and our own healing processes to extend my life and to do that. But also to be able to say, as long as I have, however much time I have, I want to use this for as much good as I can in the world. I want to inspire people. I want to encourage people. I mean, Chrissy's this is part of what keeps her going, is this sense of there's purpose to this. And it's not that God made it happen for this, but it has happened. And I want to see what good can come from this. And Chrissy and Matt have been all-stars in this field, showing us, what this looks like, teaching us how do we face suffering and tragedy.
This what you're saying also illustrates something that we've talked about on the phone, but also Matt and Chrissy and I have talked about, is that faith and science can coexist. Here at the University of Kansas Health System, we have so many brilliant doctors who also agree that faith and science and medicine can coexist. And Dr. Hawkinson's nodding his head. I want to play something that illustrates just the hope and the faith that Chrissy have. This is something they said during one of our interviews about actively finding happiness in a time that could be completely bleak.
Everybody has something
Horrible. And
everybody. Like, even if you're going through a bad divorce or a hard financial time in your life or whatever. These are real stressful things. It doesn't necessarily have to be cancer. Happiness is a choice. You know what I mean? Where you're like, hey, I'm in this tough spot. It's really hard, but I'm going to make some choices today about being happy.
I try not to delve into the sadness of it, because when I do, I don't like that place.
It's not a place you can stay.
No.
You can't stay in the darkness and in how horrible it is. I mean, you can't stay in that place.
Yeah, it's not healthy.
No. Well, I don't think I could survive there.
One of the other really beautiful things about sitting with Matt and Chrissy is that you are like one person answering things. You finish each other's sentences. You'll say something. Chrissy will say something. It's just so fun. It's like a show. When I'm sitting with you guys talking, the way you guys finish each other's sentences and ping pong back and forth, and the way you're so united, and your family is one that has been hit by such an unfair string of events. In addition to Chrissy's diagnosis, you've been hit with a series of events in just the last handful of years that might break one person, just one event. Hope it's okay that I run down with this to give our viewers some perspective. Chrissy, when I first met you, you were spending multiple weeks at a time in Washington, D.C., caring for your brother, who's your best friend, who just had an accident, a bike accident, and became paralyzed. Then your dad passed away from cancer. Then your mom was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And then, Matt, you were diagnosed with colon cancer. And then, my goodness, Matt, your dad passed from COVID. And then we get Chrissy's diagnosis. I mean, it's like you were just being hit over the head with these events. And I remember turning to my husband, Salvador, and saying, how do they keep going? How on earth are they still getting out of bed in the morning? When a family like, well, first of all, how do you keep going? I mean, Matt, you wake up at 1:30 every morning to anchor a newscast. Chrissy, you work with children with cancer. When that alarm goes off for either one of you, I'll start with Matt, because you're the one that wakes up earliest. How do you even put 2 feet on the floor and get dressed?
Well, first of all, that's a tough question to answer. I think, one, having purpose, right? So I think career gives you purpose. when Chrissy was first diagnosed, there were some people that were encouraging her to maybe quit her career and just focus on you and focus on living every moment. Well, part of living every moment is having purpose in our lives. And so going to work, I told Chrissy, I said, no, you need to keep working with these sick children at Children's Mercy, because that helps you give purpose. That gives you a reason to wake up every day, and it's a distraction. So coming to work for me is a huge distraction. I don't sit here and just think about, my wife and feel sorry for us. It allows me to kind of, focus on other things. And then I also think just the fact that, we have a tight-knit family. We've always been open and honest with each other. Chrissy and I on the weekends, we'll have our coffee time. We'll go on the porch, drink our coffee and talk. And, we'll cry together and we'll laugh together. And we do a lot of things together. And we really are trying to make the most of every moment. And so I think just being in this together, and there's this interesting, Pastor Adam has talked about this before, but, when someone's in this ditch, you want to lift them out of the ditch, right? Come here, here's the rope, come out. Well, it's more powerful when you actually go in the ditch with them, and you cry with them and you listen to them and you're with them. And so that's what I'm trying to do as a husband, and just trying to be there for Chrissy.
And Chrissy, you've been hit by so much, and yet you're still going, and I see you still, helping Kendall, your brother, and your family. And where do you find the energy? And you must have great reserves of energy in you. You have something special that a lot of us wish we had. How do you do it?
Well, one, you really don't have a choice. I have to say, when bad things happen in your life, you have to soldier on. And you may not know how that's going to look for you until it happens to you. But I would say number one is gratitude. I mean, no matter what's happening in my life, I can always find things to be grateful for. Like I said, in the earlier spiel, but when I start feeling sorry for myself, I think at least it's not my children. Like sometimes I feel like I'm taking one for the team, surely if I have cancer, they're going to spare my kids. Right. And I like what Matt said when he said that you move forward with a purpose. When I realized, hey, I know I was 42 when I was diagnosed. I think it was reasonable to kind of, assume that maybe I was going to live 30 more years. Before then, but then you're diagnosed and you realize how shortened that is. You can't waste a minute. I am trying to fill 30 years of life into maybe 3 to 5 years realistically. So yeah, absolutely. You got to get up out of that bed and keep on going, because I don't want to waste a minute.
Wish I could hug you right now. I'm going to get to Pastor Adam right now. And Jill, I know Jill's nodding her head because she's getting more and more comments. I'm going to ask Pastor Adam a question while Jill's able to collect more comments, because we get them by the dozens. Pastor Adam, what Matt said when he was quoting you about getting in the ditch with someone, what does that look like to people watching who are also seeing someone go through something horrible? Oh, we lost you. Now you're on mute.
Sorry, there we go.
We need to send Matt to wherever you are. I set up your laptop.
Sorry about that. I'm at the Lake of the Ozarks, and there's an ambient noise, so I'm turning this off as much as possible. I do think it's just showing up. A lot of times when people get sick or they're going through tragedy, there's been a death in a family, people become, they don't know what to say, and so sometimes they stop showing up. And I think showing up matters. And when you're showing up, it's allowing people to grieve without trying to. What we tend to do is we want to say something that's going to make it better. As Matt said, we want to pull somebody out of the ditch. And so we go in and we do that, and then we find it's uncomfortable and we don't really know what to say. But I think showing up and just saying, and again, I love you. Do you need help mowing your yard? What can I? Don't even ask if somebody needs help. Just show up and do it.
Just do it.
If you ask, they're going to say no.
Right.
But because most of us want to, take care of things ourselves. But I remember showing up one time when a family had lost their daughter, and she was 23 years old or something. And I was a new pastor. I was a young pastor, and I went and got a pizza, and I just came to their house and I said, hope you like pizza. And they're like, yeah, we didn't have anything for lunch yet today. And so we started eating, and I just said, tell me all the beautiful things about your daughter. Tell me about what she was like when she was little. And we sat there for an hour and a half, and all I did was listen and eat pizza. And years later, I got a note from them, and they said, of all the things that happened when our daughter died, the most comforting, consoling, helpful thing was when you showed up with a pizza and you just asked us to talk about our daughter. And I think that's, I think it's the showing up that matters. And I don't know, Matt and Chrissy, you might just say what's been most helpful to you when people have tried to encourage you. What's that look like? Teach us how we can do this better.
Yeah, that's a good question. Chrissy, I'll just let you answer that first, because you've also talked about the importance of accepting help, which is something you learned from watching your brother Kendall go through his accident and the aftermath. So what is the best thing or the most comforting thing that people can do for your family right now?
That's a really hard question, actually. I think to help me, I want you to help and support my kids and my husband. You know, like when someone when you're sick, or I mean, it doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. One thing that warmed my heart is my best friend got a sympathy card from someone about me, that she was, I thought that was so sweet, that I was just like, oh, well, yeah, because everyone around me is going through a hard time and processing it in our own way. And yes, when my brother went through his accident, it was just awful. And everyone, a super outpouring of love and support. And what I really learned through that experience was people want to do something. And like Pastor Adam said, they don't always know what that looks like or what's the best thing. And the best thing for you to do is just accept it. Just accept whatever help that is. Say yes, because that's them giving you love. And you wouldn't ever want to reject someone's love when they're trying to love on you during this time. So I am a very independent, fiercely independent person, as Matt knows. So there's a lot about this that I don't like. I don't like being, I don't want you to take me to chemo. I'm going to take myself to chemo and everything like that. But sometimes it's good to just accept help from other people, because you're not just accepting help and it doesn't mean you're weak. You're accepting their love.
Oh, it's such a great way to put it. Speaking of accepting people's love, Jill's busy fielding the comments. We're never going to be able to read all of them. Jill, let's try to make a dent in some of these at least. What do you have for us?
This is just know that everybody that is watching this are hugging you right now.
Yes.
And some of their comments and this whole story, it is emotional, but Todd says compassion is so very powerful, writing in caps. Cindy is watching on YouTube, and she said, I recently went through lung cancer surgery, and my husband and I both have said the same as you and Matt. We're going to go through this journey with thanks and gratitude. In all things, give thanks. Diana, she also is a cancer patient who says that she can relate because her children are adults with children of their own. She goes, my heart goes out to you. She says, will never be in remission, so every day I try to live to the fullest. Another one I wanted to share was Sharon. She says that attitude is number one. This family has love and so much life ahead of them. They are a true inspiration. Claudia, we are supporting you, Chrissy. You have a tribe of survivors and prayers. And I just wanted you to know that Alice says that she's praying for a miracle. She wants one for you. And she's going to do that. Katie, Rachel, Camille, Courtney, Angela. Angela, her son is named Matt, and his wife is Chrissy. And everyone is identifying with you in so many ways, and they love you, they're hugging you, and praying for you.
Oh, so sweet. Matt, I have a question for you about attention, because you're used to living in the limelight, and you've always been very public, and Chrissy's very open. You have 3 kids, very different ages. They're 13, 15, and 17. Did I get those right? Those
12,
ages?
15, 17.
Oh, 12, 15, and 17. How did they feel about all this attention? Because I remember Chrissy and you saying at first it was kind of weird, and how do they feel now?
I mean, I think growing up, the children of a television reporter, they're kind of used to the attention in general, right? Now, obviously, there's a lot more attention now with Chrissy's diagnosis, and I know the kids will go to school and teachers will come up and how's your mom? And, they see their classmates wearing the Stewart Strong shirts, and they, it's weird for them for sure. But, we just have honest conversations with them. In fact, that's one thing that I would really encourage all you parents out there that kind of have a similar diagnosis with cancer, is just to be honest with your kids. I mean, I think they have a right to know kind of what's going on in your life because it's affecting your life. And so, after we got back from Houston, from MD Anderson, we sat down with the kids and we had an open conversation. We talked to all of them and there were tears and we just told them what was going on. And we're not trying to scare them, but we're trying to be honest. And I think they appreciated that. And then we've been honest along the journey as well. And yes, we are focusing on the positivity, especially around the kids, because we don't want to stress out the kids more than they already are stressed out. We don't want them more anxious than they already are anxious. We know they're going through a lot and we're trying to respect that. But at the same time, they're a part of this family unit and they're going through it too. And we're all going through it together. And I think you find strength in numbers and you find strength leaning on each other as a family.
Pastor Adam, I will keep wanting to call you Pastor Hamilton, but he's so sweet. Okay. He says, call me Adam, and I can't do that, so I'm saying Pastor Adam. Do you counsel your families about keeping everyone in the same boat? Is that something that Chrissy and Matt have learned from you, from talking with you, getting everybody on board with the same set of information, no matter what their different ages and stages are?
I think they figure that out on their own. And certainly when you have small children, it's a different issue. So when they're small children, you have to think age appropriately, but their kids are young adults and they are able to understand and able to handle the information. And generally speaking, more information is better than less. Transparency is better than hiding things, because if you're hiding things, the people around you figure that out eventually. And they wonder why you're acting strange or why you have these things going on. But when you can be able to be upfront, and even when they're small children, to say, Mom, he's really sick. And, but we know that God is walking with her and we're going to see the doctors a lot and she loves you a lot. I mean, those kind of things where where the kids cannot feel like there's something that's being hidden from them is really important. And I just want to say one other thing, what I love in listening to Chrissy and Matt is, this lesson they're giving all of us on how you live with this. And Alexis, you're doing such a great job with, capturing this, but I just want to say some of the things that I've heard you say so far. Making sure that you're looking for what is your purpose in life and how do you bring meaning from suffering. This is what both of you are doing so well. And when you do that, God didn't cause this, but I want to use this. These are the cards I've been dealt. So what do I do with this? That's having the maximum amount of good, and your combination of realism and hope. So, on the one hand, there is I continue to hope. I continue to hope for medical advances. I continue to hope for the miracle. I continue to hope for my body to respond to these things, the chemo. And at the same time, I understand that, you've said several times, 1% to 2% chance of living 10 years and so that combination is really important. And often when people are sick, either loved ones hide that and they don't, nobody wants to talk about it. So then the person's left feeling like, I know this knowledge that I might not make it, but we can't really talk about it, make plans and prepare. And you all have done such a great job of doing both of those. But the other thing I love, in addition to your faith, is your humor and the fact that when you could laugh about something, it helps. And I love watching that today, but I love just knowing that about both of you.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Pastor Adam, because Chrissy is so fun. It's weird to think it's fun to follow someone on Facebook who's going through something so awful. But Chrissy, you're so open and you post these live videos, and you recently shared some pictures because you discovered, and this is helping other people who are also battling cancer, as you come for your treatments at the University of Kansas Cancer Center. You just discovered you can do DoorDash. And you posted some pictures. See, that's what I mean. I mean, you post the funniest things. So you've made some really interesting revelations and discoveries that are helping people who are really in the weeds right now. Is there anything you don't post? I mean, you've posted crying pictures, you've posted laughing pictures, you've posted the walrus with the chopsticks. Does that just feel cathartic? That's kind of just you, though, having known you for a long time.
It's a little me, and I just feel like once Matt and I decided we're going to let people in, then let's let people in and let's see what this really is about. Like people say, you're so positive. And I'm like, well, that just means I got to show a picture of me crying, like let's keep it real. I mean, especially in the early days, like right after my diagnosis, like I call it the time of tears and terror, because, you're crying all the time and you're terrified. I mean, wow. I remember my mom asked me if I was scared and I'm like, nope, terrified.
Wow.
It's awful, but I want to keep that really real for people, because I don't want people to be like, oh, Chrissy was so happy and fun and funny through this whole experience, when it's like, oh, no. There were plenty of times when I crawled in my husband's lap and sobbed, and he literally had to put me to bed like a toddler.
Oh.
So let's just be really real that this is what life looks like, but you can do it. You can.
It's incredible. It's just important that everybody soaks up every message that all three of you have. You've also talked about the nitty-gritty about chemo and how you had an allergic reaction the first time and how the care team just swooped in and helped you out. And I thought that was really powerful because you've become a very familiar face here at the University of Kansas Cancer Center and at the health system. Tell us about the team that you see on a regular basis for your chemo.
Everyone I've never had a bad nurse in the chemo center. They're just amazing. That very first time, the first time you go to chemo, it's scary. You're not sure what to expect. With all the COVID rules, you're not allowed to have a support person. So you have to go in there by yourself. And so I'm there and they have me all set up and, it's quite a long process. But they got my drip started, and this was one chemo that had, a small chance of allergic reaction, but it could be a serious one. So they had someone babysit me. They had to sit there with me for about 15 minutes, and they were cueing me on what to tell them if I was feeling it. And of course, poor Matt. I'm on the phone with Matt at the time, and I started feeling what they were, telling me to watch out for. And I said, Matt, I got to go. And I go to the nurse. I said, run. Go, it's happening, so, and I work at Children's Mercy, and I'm in nutrition. So we talk a lot about food allergies and things like that. So I think I thought I know what an allergic reaction felt like. And obviously there's all different kinds of reactions, but this one was not what I anticipated. And it was painful. It was, painful and terrifying. But I will say, after I said go, there were 3 nurses in my room so fast, and they were giving me the rescue medications and support. And I will never forget this one nurse. She will live in my heart forever. Her name's Abby. Gave me a huge, because after it was over and I knew I was okay, I just sobbed, just crying. And, I was like, wow, that was really scary, And no, she came up and held my hand, and she hugged me, and was just showed up. Like we were just saying, she was just there for me. She couldn't take the pain away. She couldn't take away the fear, but she was right there with me. So I felt like they not only gave me good medical care, but they also gave me great emotional support.
Gosh, that's so special. What was the nurse's name again? I want you to say it again.
Abby.
Abby.
I've written her a thank you note, and she even has a Stewart Strong shirt.
Oh, that's amazing. When you talk about, showing up, that's something that so many of our healthcare workers do emotionally. Yes, they show up because they're brilliant doctors and nurses and medical staff, but they show up emotionally, and that's one of the beautiful things about being able to meet everyone behind the scenes, is to see that bond. And I want to well, first of all, Matt, did you freak out? Were you between live shots when that happened? And she's like, gotta go. What do? You're on the air.
I was off. This happened after my shift, but I was actually getting her some food down the street. And then she was like, I got to go by. And she hung up, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to the cancer center. And if there's an ambulance there, I'll start freaking out.
Oh my gosh.
But I knew there were nurses there. So I figured she was fine, and she was. Right. But yeah, it's a little scary.
Pastor Adam, this brings us full circle to how we're using a lot of words: faith, hope, showing up, science. And we do have many episodes where doctors talk about the power of science coexisting with faith. Have you seen instances where you see, people are physically better with the addition of faith and hope and human interaction and that emotional well-being?
Absolutely. So all 3 of those things work together. I'm reminded when Jesus healed people, there were times he'd say, your faith has made you well. He was talking about there's something about our brain and our attitudes and our hearts that help in the healing process. So, you talked about Abby and others, they incarnate love for people. That helps us. I find when I go in to pray for somebody before surgery, and I might walk in and they're anxious and afraid and their body's tensed up and their blood pressure's higher and everything else, And when I walk in and I take their hand, and I speak to them words of comfort and encouragement from Scripture, and then I anoint their head with oil in the sign of the cross, and I pray for them, I watch the anxiety and the stress go down. And suddenly there's a sense of peace that they have, that my life is in God's hands, and I got good doctors, and they're going to do everything they can, and the nurses. And that helps in the healing process. I mean, there's something about, again, how our brain is thinking and processing fear and what's going on in our bodies that helps in the healing process. And again, I believe, as a Christian, I believe God's Spirit is inside of us, working in us and permeating us. And so when you bring all of that together, great medicine and a deep faith and trust, and that pushes back the fear and the darkness, and then people who surround you with care, you find the best opportunity for healing. And one of the things that Chrissy and Matt know we talk about a lot at Resurrection is our name comes from Easter, right? The resurrection of Christ. And one of the things we say is that the resurrection, so this then is sort of a deeper hope that we have beyond just maybe I'll get another year or 2 years or 10 years. But this idea that God walks with us in our suffering. Christ came and he suffered and died on a cross. He was tortured to death on a cross. But on the third day, he was raised from the dead. And so we say the resurrection means that the worst thing is never the last thing, and that cancer doesn't get to have the final word, and death doesn't have the final word. And in the world, cruelty and inhumanity, they don't have the final word, that God walks with us and in the end raises us up. And our healing happens sometimes here, but ultimately in the kingdom of heaven. And so, that's something I know Chrissy and Matt both hold on to, is that, Chrissy wants to live as long as she can here. And at the same time, she knows she belongs to God. And God is walking with her, and God is walking with Matt. And we talked about what happens, if she passes, what happens to Matt and the kids, and God's going to walk with them and carry them and sustain them, and through them bring about as much good and beauty as possible through this set of circumstances that is difficult and hard.
I want to check back with Jill, because before we can't leave without giving a couple more community questions. Jill, you have hundreds, thousands of them, but pick a couple and share a couple more with us.
I have picked two,
Okay.
because I think they kind of sum up the feeling and do a really good job with what we've heard and what we've learned today. Jamie says, Chrissy, you will always be the life of the party. And Stu's crew, they just make the world better. And then the last one goes to Jo Ellen. She writes, I admit that at first I didn't want to watch because I thought this would be sad, but it's been hopeful and uplifting and many blessings to this couple.
Oh, that's so nice. I have a question for Pastor Adam. Well, first of all, I actually want to give you a little shout out, a virtual hug for you as well, Pastor, because we want to thank you on behalf of the whole team here at the University of Kansas Health System for supporting us so much over the years, including with the Rejuvenation Station. You can see it right there.
Oh, yeah.
These items are brought to you by the family of the Church of the Resurrection. These Rejuvenation Stations are so uplifting. They're these snack carts that come around to all the frontline workers. And I gotta say, during the pandemic and even beyond, this is so uplifting. There's Bob and Tammy there with the Rejuvenation Station. Thank you for that, and thank you for the support that you and your congregation have given the health system. It's just so special.
Alexis, thank you. It's been a joy for us. Part of what we recognized during COVID was how hard this was for healthcare workers. You all were on the front lines and jobs, doing things you never, taking risks you never thought you'd be taking. And we just began asking, what can we do to support healthcare workers? And at some hospitals, we talked to the CEOs and they were like, coffee would be great. And at some hospitals at KU, it was like, we have these treat carts, and we're like, yes, that's awesome. And but our congregation has been praying for healthcare workers. We love what you do. You embody love to the world. You matter so much to all the rest of us. And so anyway, thank you for lifting that up. But this is something we've been honored to have a chance to do as a congregation.
You've seen so much and done so much in your decades of being a pastor and counseling people. I have a question for you. What have you learned from watching and walking beside Matt and Chrissy?
Yeah. So, part of what I have a privilege as a pastor of doing is learning from the people who are walking through this stuff. In seminary, they don't teach you all of this. They try to equip you with some skills and gifts, but what I do is every time I'm with people like Chrissy and Matt, I'm listening and paying attention. I have a journal, and when I walked out of their house, I began writing down notes of what I had seen in them and how they have faced this. And I'd say not so much learning for the first time, but reinforcing the things that I've learned over the years of how you face tragedy with faith and hope. how you try to bring meaning out of, out of what's going on. The early Methodists talked about having a good death, and that was saying, however long I have left, I want to make it count. And Chrissy does all that. And just intuitively, she does that. And Matt's doing that. And so I think I just look at them and I find myself inspired. And I want to tell their story to other people because I think it inspires and teaches other people. How do you deal with life? How do you cope with faith? How do you cope with hard things with faith? And how ultimately do you live, as people of the resurrection? And that's what they do so beautifully and so well. And I am so proud to be one of their pastors at Church of the Resurrection, and to say these folks go to Resurrection and this is what it looks like to be people who have a deep faith and who live that faith in their daily lives. And just really proud of both of them.
Matt, I want to ask you, you talk a lot about keeping things in perspective. Both you and Chrissy do that. What is something that you wish people would know or carried with them after seeing you on this program?
Well, I think if there's anything that I'm hoping to get across to people, it's the power of positivity. We control our attitudes, we control our thoughts. And even though there are bad things that are happening in our lives, we don't want the negativity to win. There's a growing body of evidence out there that positive thought can heal bodies. When you believe, that's where faith has really come in for Chrissy and I. We've really been leaning on our faith, really been leaning on God. But more than anything, we want to enjoy each moment. And a part of enjoying each moment is not letting that dark cloud get too low, right? It's trying to break the sunshine through. And so if anything, you're going to see Chrissy and I, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. I mean, there are times when, we let it get to us and we cry and we feel sorry for ourselves, but we really work hard to lift each other up and to stay positive. And so if anything, I'm just hoping that other people going through difficult circumstances in life, just work hard, try to find, ways to stay positive through the darkness.
Chrissy, one of the things that you've said to me, first of all, you're really simply probably the kindest person I've ever met. And throughout this, one of the things that you always repeat is the importance of being kind to strangers because their pain might not be visible. Would you like to say a little bit about that? Because I know that's important to you.
Definitely important to me. And I even went live about this on my Facebook page the other day. It was talking about how I'm a Girl Scout leader and we're taught to, leave anywhere we go better than we found it. And I feel like we need to leave people better than we find them too. So whoever you meet from day to day, whether that's someone super close to you, obviously your best friends and your family and coworkers, but even the barista at Starbucks or, the person you sit next to at church, leave them better than you found them. Be a hope, be an encourager and a cheerleader for them all the way through, because really you don't know what people are going through. For me, it's a little more obvious because of my bald head, but a lot of times, there's not that telltale sign that something's going on. So just be kind.
Chrissy, honestly, everybody who knows you is better for knowing you. That's just a fact. That's a fact. Chrissie Stewart, Matt Stewart, Pastor Adam, thank you so much for making the time to join us this morning and being so vulnerable and opening up your lives to us and for your wisdom, Pastor Adam. We could do this for another 3 hours and we'd still be reading questions and comments and messages from our viewers, but thank you. This is such a gift to all of us. Thank you. I do want to
thank you for having us today.
Oh,
it was awesome.
It's our pleasure. Our pleasure. I want to check in one last time with Dr. Dana Hawkinson because we are heading into a long holiday weekend. It's a whopper. Parties. We've still got COVID. We've talked about monkeypox, fireworks safety.
Yeah.
Do you have any final message for our viewers when it comes to safety and health as they go on to do those family activities together?
I do. I'd just like to comment, thank you to our guests and such important messages. And I'm no theologian or Catholic apologist, but I think the things we need to re-summarize what they brought up. And, unfortunately on this earth, we do have pain and suffering as humans, we do. But we have free will, and we heard the pastor talk about how, unfortunately in free will, some people do bad things, but we also have that free will to use our intelligence and use our science and get to these things to help our suffering, and we can do that. But also we've heard about the immense power of prayer, and I would continue anybody to pray, and just start by just talking, and that's all it needs to be. And then also we heard Chrissy talk about gratitude. It's important to have gratitude, and I know it's hard sometimes, but just focusing on gratitude and being kind will help other things as well. And then as far as the final thoughts about going into the weekend and being safe, obviously wear your sunscreen. Please be safe. We've heard about cancer checks and colonoscopies. Sunscreen will help prevent skin cancer. Please do that and be safe. Be safe when you're using fireworks as well. Hopefully we'll get some rain and hopefully dampen the environment around us so nothing goes and burns down as well. But if you are needing your updated vaccine, please go get updated, be up to date with your vaccine. If you are going out, remember there is still high circulation of the virus out there, so understand and judge those risks that you're going to be doing. Are you going into restaurants? Are you going to parties, just as you said? Being outdoors is going to be much, much safer. If you feel uncomfortable or are going to be indoors, wear your mask. You can always do that. That will provide protection as well. And so as we move into this weekend, just take those thoughts and try to do those things that can keep you and your family safe.
And still, we got to work to protect the people around us, precious people like Chrissy.
Yep.
I just want to take her and put her in a little bottle and keep her like inspirational quotes and things. I want to get everything she says and put it up all around our desk here. Again, thank you so much, guys, to the Stewarts and Pastor Adam. Thank you to Dr. Hawkinson for that wisdom. I know your faith is very important to you as well. And thank you all for joining us today and for all those wonderful comments. Keep them coming. I know Matt and Chrissy are going to be scrolling through their Facebook and the feeds tonight. What a nice thing to leave messages for them to read. Have a wonderful, safe, long holiday weekend, and we'll see you next week.
It is 4th of July, and many of us are celebrating Independence Day with friends and family. I'm Jessica Lovell. We will be just like you and enjoying the holidays, so please be safe, and we will see you Wednesday back here at 8.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and open mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.